Welcome back to my channel. Today, we will learn about one of the most devastating and emotionally charged chapters in the long, tumultuous history of General Hospital. In this episode, the streets of Port Charles become darker than ever as unresolved vendettas, hidden motives, and the relentless pursuit of vengeance converge in a tragedy that will change the lives of the Corinthos family and everyone around them forever. It began with a bomb. The shocking explosion that rocked Sonny Corinthos' home was not just an act of violence, it was a declaration of war. Though Michael survived with injuries, the true culprit remained elusive, a shadow slipping between the cracks of the city's underbelly, leaving behind only destruction and terror. The Port Charles Police Department threw all their resources at the case, but the perpetrator seemed to vanish into thin air. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses willing to step forward. Every lead grew cold as soon as it emerged. For Sonny and Michael, the sense of danger never dissipated. The specter of death loomed constantly, an invisible hand threatening to strike at any moment, anywhere, until the person behind the horror was exposed and brought to justice. Michael, recovering from his injuries and bearing the scars of recent events, made a difficult decision for the safety of his children, Wiley and Amelia. Despite the ongoing custody battle with Willow, Michael believed that his mother Carly's house would offer sanctuary, a safe haven tucked away from the dangers stalking them. With Port Charles still reeling from the attack, he quietly moved Wiley and Amelia to Carly's, convincing himself that behind those walls, nothing could touch them. But safety was an illusion, as fragile as hope itself in a city built on secrets and vendettas. Michael's refusal to allow Willow and her new partner Drew to raise the children escalated tensions that had simmered beneath the surface for months. The wounds of divorce and betrayal were still fresh, the pain of past mistakes haunted every decision. For Michael, the urge to protect was inseparable from his desire to control, and for Willow, every moment separated from her children was another knife in her heart. The struggle between them for Wiley and Amelia became more than a legal battle. It was a contest of blame, guilt, and the desperate need to prove who loved the children more. The day of the tragedy began with the kind of ordinary chaos that so often precedes disaster. Willow, driven by a mother's agony and desperation, arrived at Carly's house, determined to take Wiley and Amelia home with her. She pleaded, demanded, argued, unwilling to accept Michael's unilateral decisions any longer. Carly, fiercely protective of her son and grandchildren, stood her ground, unwilling to yield an inch to Willow's demands. The conflict between the three adults erupted in shouts and accusations, each side convinced of their own righteousness, each blinded by grief and fear. Inside the house, Wiley and Amelia played, unaware of the storm raging around them, unaware that the shadow that haunted their family had come for them. In the next instant, a deafening explosion shattered the fragile peace. Flames erupted, engulfing the living room in a furious blaze. Windows burst, sending shards of glass across the room. The air filled with the acrid scent of smoke, the choking heat of fire, and the screams of terror from the adults outside. Michael was the first to react, running toward the inferno with Willow and Carly close behind. The world narrowed to the agony of the moment. The desperate race into the burning house, the frantic search for the children, the roar of the flames, and the relentless, unyielding wall of fire that blocked every path to Wiley and Amelia. Time stretched and contracted, each second a lifetime of horror. But the fire was merciless, the heat unbearable. The three of them clawed through the smoke, calling the children's names, but the inferno was already too far gone. Their voices were drowned by the crackling of flames and the groan of collapsing beams. Outside, the neighbors and emergency responders gathered, but nothing could be done. The blaze was all-consuming, too fierce to allow entry. The house that had been a sanctuary became a tomb. When the fire was finally extinguished, the truth was undeniable. Wiley and Amelia, two children who had known only love and conflict, hope and heartbreak, were gone. Their lives were taken in an instant, victims of a vendetta they could never understand. The grief that followed was overwhelming, suffocating, shattering everyone who loved them. Willow's scream pierced the night, a sound of such pure anguish that even the most hardened responders faltered. She collapsed to the ground, inconsolable, her body racked by sobs, her mind refusing to accept the reality of what had happened. She lashed out at Michael, blaming him for moving the children to Carly's house, for exposing them to the threat that had never truly disappeared. Her pain became rage, directed at the man she once loved, now the object of her fury and despair. Michael was devastated, his mind replaying every decision, every moment, searching for the mistake that had cost his children their lives. He tried to hold Willow, to beg forgiveness, but there were no words that could heal the wound. In that moment, he saw himself not as a protector, but as the architect of tragedy, the reason Wiley and Amelia were gone. Carly, too, was broken, her home destroyed, her family torn apart, her heart aching with the knowledge that her best intentions had paved the way for disaster. For Sonny, who had already lost so much, the news was another blow in a long line of heartbreaks. His fury at the unknown attacker boiled over, but beneath the anger was a profound sense of failure. He had promised his family that he could keep them safe, that his enemies would never touch those he loved, and now the lie was exposed. Port Charles was a city of secrets, and Sonny's enemies had struck at his most vulnerable point. The investigation intensified. The Port Charles Police Department scoured the ruins for evidence, desperate for anything that could lead to the person responsible. Forensic teams analyzed every inch of the wreckage, looking for accelerants, for traces of the device that started the blaze. The theory emerged quickly: this was no accident, no freak malfunction. It was arson, calculated and precise, designed not just to destroy, but to kill. Questions echoed throughout the community. Who was behind the attack? Was it the same person who had planted the bomb at Sonny's house? Why had the target shifted to Michael and his children? Theories abounded, each more chilling than the last. Some suspected rivals in the underworld, others pointed to unfinished business from Sonny's criminal past, while others wondered if the culprit was closer to home, someone with a personal grudge against Michael or Carly. As the days passed, suspicion fell on every outsider, every new arrival, every face that had ever crossed Sonny or Michael. The loss of Wiley and Amelia fractured the already fragile peace between Michael and Willow. Their custody battle dissolved into mutual accusations, a torrent of blame and regret that neither could escape. Friends and family tried to intervene, but there was no comfort to offer, no words sufficient for the magnitude of their loss. Each retreated into their own private hell, haunted by memories of the children they would never see grow up. Carly, once the unbreakable matriarch, struggled under the weight of guilt. She replayed the arguments with Willow, the decision to shelter the children, the moments before the blast. She blamed herself for not seeing the danger, for believing her home could protect anyone from the darkness stalking their family. The Corinthos household became a place of mourning, its halls silent except for the echoes of the past. Meanwhile, Sonny doubled down on his own investigation, leveraging his network, calling in favors, and promising retribution. He met with allies and adversaries alike, offering rewards for information, issuing threats to those who might have played a part. But the person responsible remained in the shadows, their motives inscrutable, their methods ruthless. In the broader community, the tragedy sent shockwaves through Port Charles. The deaths of 2 children, so public, so violent, forced everyone to confront the cost of the city's never-ending wars. Politicians decried the violence, police promised action, but the families knew better. This was not a crime that would be solved by simple means. The enemy was cunning, patient, and willing to destroy anyone to achieve their goal. As weeks passed, the focus shifted from grief to justice. Michael, consumed by a need for answers, worked alongside Sonny, abandoning his usual caution in pursuit of any lead. He pored over security footage, phone records, bank transfers. Anything that might point to the killer. He alienated friends, pushed away loved ones, and grew increasingly isolated, his pain transforming into obsession. Willow, devastated and broken, withdrew from the world. She attended the funerals in a daze, clinging to the few memories she had left of Wiley and Amelia. The world became gray, her future unimaginable. Drew tried to comfort her, but the loss was too great, the wounds too fresh. The love that had sustained them began to crumble, replaced by silence and sorrow. The city's media seized on the tragedy, broadcasting images of the destroyed home, the grieving family, the calls for justice. Every detail was analyzed, every rumor reported. Some speculated that the attack was meant for Sonny, that Michael was collateral damage. Others suggested Michael himself had enemies willing to go to any length. The atmosphere in Port Charles grew tense, suspicion coloring every interaction. Amidst the chaos, the police uncovered a single piece of evidence, a fragment of a device, charred but not destroyed. It was similar to the bomb used at Sonny's house, linking the two crimes. But the signature was subtle, designed to confuse, to mislead investigators. The person behind the attacks was a professional, careful, and meticulous, with knowledge of both law enforcement procedures and Sonny's world. The Corinthos family, united by grief, began to fracture under the strain. Accusations were made, old wounds reopened, alliances shifted. The quest for justice became a consuming fire, burning away the remnants of their former lives. And through it all, the central truth remained: the person responsible for the deaths of Wiley and Amelia was still out there, watching, waiting, ready to strike again. The tragedy at Carly's house was not the end, but only the beginning of a new chapter of violence and loss in Port Charles. The city mourned with the Corinthos and Courtemain families. Memorials sprang up at the site of the fire, flowers and candles marking the place where two young lives were cut short. But the grief was tempered by fear, a gnawing certainty that until the person behind the attacks was caught, no one in Port Charles was truly safe. As the days grew into weeks and then months, the tragedy left a permanent scar on the city. Michael and Willow were changed forever, their innocence lost, their hope for reconciliation destroyed. Sonny's world, already shadowed by violence, became darker still. Carly, once the heart of her family, became a symbol of both strength and suffering. In the end, the only certainty was that Port Charles would never be the same. The loss of Wiley and Amelia became a rallying cry. A reminder of what was at stake in the war between light and darkness, love and vengeance, hope and despair. The search for justice continued, but the cost had already been paid in blood. In General Hospital, the line between victim and survivor is thin, and every victory is marked by loss. The deaths of Wiley and Amelia would echo for years to come, shaping the destinies of all who loved them, a grim testament to the dangers lurking beneath the surface of the city they called home. Next, we will dive deep into the heart-wrenching revelation that has shaken the Courtemain family to its core. Ned Courtemain, a pillar of strength and unwavering support for his daughter Brooklyn, was left reeling after discovering a long-buried secret: his daughter had a child he never knew existed. This bombshell, hidden for years, has unraveled layers of pain, confusion, and unspoken decisions that could forever alter the dynamics of this iconic Port Charles family. Let's explore the intricate web of choices, emotions, and consequences surrounding this shocking disclosure, with new insights and details that paint a fuller picture of the drama. The story begins with a devastating blow to Ned Courtemain's trust in those closest to him. He recently uncovered that Brooklyn, his beloved daughter, bore a child during her teenage years, a grandchild he was never told about. The news hit like a tidal wave, leaving Ned grappling with a mix of betrayal and sorrow. What compounded his anguish was learning that Lois, Brooklyn's mother and his former partner, played a pivotal role in keeping this secret under wraps. Instead of confiding in Ned, Lois made the unilateral decision to take their daughter on tour during her pregnancy, far from the prying eyes of Port Charles. On the road, Brooklyn gave birth, and Lois facilitated the placement of the newborn with a distant relative, shielding both Ned and Brooklyn from the truth. Ned, who always prided himself on being a supportive father, now questions every moment of his relationship with his daughter. How could such a monumental event be hidden from him? He wonders if he failed to create a safe space for Brooklyn to confide in him, or if Lois's influence over their daughter's upbringing created an impenetrable barrier between them. Delving deeper into the timeline, the origins of this secret trace back to a summer that changed Brooklyn's life forever. As a young teenager, she returned from a seemingly innocent summer camp with a life-altering reality. She was pregnant with Dante Falconeri's child. Overwhelmed and unprepared for the responsibilities of motherhood, Brooklyn confided in only one soul at the time, Cody Bell, a trusted friend who swore to keep her secret. When Lois discovered her daughter's condition, she assessed the situation with a pragmatic, albeit controversial, lens. She believed Brooklyn was far too young and emotionally unready to raise a child. Rather than stepping in to raise the baby herself, Lois orchestrated an adoption plan, albeit with a personal twist. Unable to fully let go of her grandson, she arranged for the child to be raised by her cousin in a neighboring city, ensuring the baby remained within the extended family's reach. To protect Brooklyn from the emotional weight of the decision, Lois withheld critical information, including the baby's gender and exact whereabouts. This choice, though made with protective intent, sowed the seeds of future heartbreak. Lois believed that ignorance would shield her daughter from pain, but in doing so, she stripped Brooklyn of agency over her own child's fate, a decision that would haunt their family for years. Meanwhile, Ned's perspective offers a poignant glimpse into the collateral damage of these hidden truths. He always thought his bond with Brooklyn was unshakable, built on mutual respect and unconditional love. Despite their physical distance during her formative years on tour with Lois, Ned never once expressed disappointment or judgment over Brooklyn's unconventional path. He trusted Lois's judgment in raising their daughter, often stepping back to avoid conflict after their separation. Yet, this revelation has shattered that trust. Ned can't fathom why neither Lois nor Brooklyn deemed him worthy of knowing about the pregnancy. As a father, he feels entitled to have been part of such a life-defining moment, especially since Brooklyn was underage at the time. The thought of his grandchild growing up without his influence, or even his awareness, cuts deep. Ned reflects on the missed milestones, the first steps, the first words, the chance to be a grandfather. He also wrestles with self-doubt, wondering if his reserved approach after the divorce signaled to Brooklyn that he wasn't a safe harbor for her struggles. This internal conflict adds a layer of complexity to Ned's pain, as he navigates feelings of exclusion amidst his unwavering love for his daughter. Brooklyn's side of the story reveals her own turmoil and the impossible choices she faced as a teenager. When she discovered her pregnancy, fear consumed her. She knew that revealing the truth to the Quartermaine family would have triggered a cascade of control and interference. The Quartermaines, with their immense wealth and influence, would likely have insisted on taking charge of the child's upbringing, potentially tying the baby's future to the corporate machinations of ELQ, their family empire. Brooklyn, still a child herself, dreaded the thought of being forced into motherhood under such scrutiny. She believed that by keeping silent, she was giving her child a chance at a simpler, less burdened life, free from the weight of Quartermaine expectations. With Cody's support, she leaned on Lois's plan, trusting her mother's judgment at a time when she felt powerless to make her own decisions. But as the years passed, the silence became a heavy burden. Brooklyn lived with the ache of not knowing her child, unaware that she had been a peripheral part of his life all along, never suspecting the true identity of the young man she'd come to know. The revelation of her son's identity, Gio Palmieri, brings a bittersweet resolution to Brooklyn's long-held pain. She now knows that Gio, a talented young musician, is the child she gave up. Astonishingly, Brooklyn has been a part of Joe's life without ever realizing their connection, watching him grow from a distance through family gatherings and chance encounters. Joe's upbringing, orchestrated by Lois's cousin, provided him with a stable, nurturing environment far removed from Port Charles's drama. His grandfather, a passionate music enthusiast, recognized Joe's talent early on and funded his education at a prestigious music school, fostering a love for the arts that defines Gio today. Learning of Joe's journey brings Brooklyn a sense of relief. Her sacrifice was not in vain, and her son flourished in ways she could only have dreamed. Yet, the joy of reunion is tempered by the challenge ahead. How to explain to Gio that his biological family had no knowledge of his true origins until now? Brooklyn, Ned, and even Lois must tread carefully to build trust with Gio, proving that their ignorance was not indifference but a consequence of painful choices made long ago. As the Quartermain family stands at this emotional crossroads, the future remains uncertain. Ned seeks answers and reconciliation, yearning to forge a bond with his grandson while mending the rift with Brooklyn. Lois must confront the fallout of her decisions, balancing her protective instincts with the hurt she caused by withholding the truth. And Brooklyn, caught between past regrets and newfound hope, faces the delicate task of integrating Gio into her life without overwhelming him. The question looms large: can they convince Gio that their love, though delayed, is genuine? This saga, rich with secrets, sacrifices, and second chances, reminds us of the enduring complexity of family ties in Port Charles, a place where hidden truths always find their way to the surface, for better or worse. Stay tuned to ABC General Hospital spoilers for more updates on this unfolding drama.